Alright, welcome to 1.6 part 2. My name is Gregory, and this next problem says there is a pressure tank on an oil rig. The inlet pipe fills the tank in 9 hours, while the outlet pipe can empty it in 12 hours. How long will it take to fill the vat if both pipes are left open? So in other words, we have this tank, and normally it would take 9 hours to fill it, and it would take 12 hours to drain it. So you can see that because it's filling faster, it'll slowly fill up if both pipes are open. So the question is, how long will it take if both pipes are open for it to fill up? And I'm just going to show you the equation to this, and you'll see why it works. The equation is, it takes, I'm going to call H to be hours. It takes 9 hours to fill it, and we take off 12 hours. And we set that equal to 1. So why does this equation work? Let me explain where I got this. We want to know when the tank is full. In other words, when the tank is equal to 1 full tank. We know that it takes 9 hours for it to fill. So if H was equal to 9, we'd get 9 over 9, which equals 1. So if we were just filling it, it would just take 9 hours. Also, if it takes 12 hours to drain, we need to subtract that off. And so after 12 hours, it would be minus 1, or minus 1 full tank. So hopefully you can just accept this equation. It will work out, and I know this because it was showed to me. So don't feel bad that I just showed it to you. So let's solve this equation for n. To solve an equation with fractions, the first thing to do is to multiply. I want to multiply a number that'll cancel 9 and 12. So let me grab my calculator and do 9 times 12, which is 108. So let's multiply the entire fraction by 108. This cancels with this to make 12. 108 cancels with 12. Remember, you're multiplying all of these by 108. So 108 cancels with 9 to make 12. 108 cancels with 12 to make 9. And 108 times 1 is 108. So now it's just easy to solve. 12 minus 9 is 3, or 3h in this case. Divide by 3, divide by 3. And we get h is equal to 108 divided by 3, which is 36. So 36 hours after we empty both valves, it should be full. So let's check our answer and see if that works. In 36 hours, it will be 36 divided by 9 is 4. So it's kind of like we filled the thing 4 times after 36 hours, because it takes 9 hours to fill it. And 36 divided by 12 is 3. So after that 36 hours, it's like we've drained it 3 times. So if we filled it 4 times and drained it 3, we will have 1 full tank. And that's why this works. So 4 minus 3 is 1, so we have 1 full tank. So 36 hours is the magic number. Now, let's talk about how to solve equations that have roots in them. So let's talk about how to solve an equation with a root. So I've put this idea here. If you have 2 sides of an equation that are equal to each other, you can take both of them to a power. Like, for example, to cancel a square root. The problem is, if you do that, you can sometimes introduce answers that are an answer to this equation, which aren't an answer to the original equation. And when that happens, it's called an extraneous solution. So basically, whenever you take an equation to a power, you should check all your answers in the original equation to make sure that they work. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's solve the square root of 5x minus x plus 10 equals 0. To solve this, the first thing to do is to isolate this square root. So I'm going to add x and subtract 10 to both sides of the equation. So I've kind of done 2 steps in one there. I've added x to both sides and subtracted 10, which will give me the square root of 5x is equal to x minus 10. So I've isolated the square root. Now let's get rid of the square root by squaring both sides of the equation. Now, when you do this, you've got to take the entire side of the equation and put it inside the square. You can't just square these things individually. You need to square the entire thing. On the left-hand side, the square cancels the square root, giving us just 5x. That's the whole reason we're doing this, is to get rid of that square root. And remember, this is FOILable. X minus 10 times itself. That's what x minus 10 squared means, x minus 10 times itself. So FOILed, that would be x squared minus 10x plus 100. Now we see that we have a quadratic formula, a quadratic problem, I should say, that we can just solve. So let's add like terms. This will be x squared minus 20x plus 100. Let's move the 5x over, giving us 0 is equal to x squared minus 25x plus 100. So we've moved everything over, and now we're solving this equation with the 0 on the end. And happily, this thing will factor. So I'm going to write it again up here. 0 equals x squared minus 25x plus 100. So 20 and 5 go into 100, so this is x minus 20, x minus 5. So if you're ever unsure of this, just FOIL it and see if it works. So this will be x equals 20 and x equals 5 are my answers. So I got two answers. And again, that takes advantage of the zero factor property. So let's try it out. We need to check our answers to make sure that they work. So let's plug in 20 right here. I get 5 times 20 is 100. The square root of 100 is 10. Minus 20 plus 10. Is that equal to 0? 10 minus 20 is negative 10. Negative 10 plus 10 is 0. So yes, that works. Let's try plugging in 5. 5 times 5 is 25. So I get the square root of 25. Let's ignore this now. The square root of 25 is 5. So I have 5 minus 5 plus 10. Wait a minute. 5 minus 5 is 0. 0 plus 10 is 10. So that's not equal to 0. So that is not a solution. You ended up with 10 equals 0. So that means that this solution right here is an extraneous solution. We turned it into a solution by squaring both sides of the equation, but in fact, only this number should be the answer, and this is an extraneous solution. See if you can solve this one on your own. Pause the video for a moment and see if you can get it. All right, hopefully you got an answer. You should have had to use the quadratic formula. So again, let's get the square root by itself by moving this stuff over, which would give us the square root of 3x equals, move the 2x over would make it positive, move the 10 over would make it negative. So hopefully that makes sense. I just did what I did right here. Moving them over flips their signs. Next, we're going to square both sides of the equation to get rid of the square root. So I get 3x is equal to, we're going to need to FOIL this. So 3x equals 4x squared minus, let's see, 20x minus 20x plus 100. Combine those and bring the 3 over. Negative 20 and negative 20 is negative 40. And if we subtract 3x, we get 0 is equal to 4x squared minus 43x plus 100. And unfortunately, that doesn't factor. And so we need to go straight to the quadratic formula. So I'm running out of room, but x will equal negative b, negative negative 43, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a, which is 4, times c, which is 100, all over 2 times a, which would be just 8. So I'm going to skip a little bit here, but if you crunch this out on your calculator very carefully, you should get the following two answers. X equals 7.3474, and x equals negative 3.4025. So do this on your calculator. Make sure you can do this to get these two answers up here. So let's go ahead and plug these into our calculators and see if they work out. Let's try plugging in the first one. We have 3 times 7.3474. And when you're doing this, you should use as many decimals as you can. take the square root of that. All right, so let's just write that number down, 4.6949. That's this number right here. So let's do 2 times x. That'll be minus 14.6948 plus 10. So let's see if that is equal to 0. So, okay, let's just clear that. So 4.6949 minus 14.6948. Now, that's basically negative 10. That would be negative 10 exactly if I had had more decimals. So if I add 10 right here, I get 0.001. That basically tells you that's an answer. It's just a rounding error, so this will work. On the other hand, I know I'm a little over on time, but if you check this in the equation, it will not work. In fact, look, if I do negative times 3, I'm going to get a negative number inside of this square root. So right away we know this isn't going to work because that's going to create an imaginary number and nothing over here is going to cancel that imaginary number. So that means this answer right here is extraneous. It's not going to work because in the square root it's going to make a negative answer, which will make an imaginary part that can't be canceled. So this answer is an extraneous solution. This is the only solution to the original equation. We'll stop right there and I'll see you in part 3.